Welcome, everybody. My name is Mark Stepp. I am the Chief Innovation Officer here at Realvolve, and we're going to be talking in office hours. One of the things, we've got a lot of new faces here. Great to see everybody here. The thing that we do in office hours is I typically go through some kind of a little bit of a presentation type piece, do some training, and then we also open it up to questions and answers through the process as well. So if you have a question, do not hesitate to raise your hand. If I keep going and stuff, maybe just unmute yourself. If you don't mind, everybody do mute yourself while we're in the presentation, just so that office noise and stuff like that doesn't seep into the recording and stuff. But man, I'm glad to see everybody here, and we're going to get started. Okay, so again, my name is Mark Stepp. I am the product development person here at Realvolve. Been in the engineering department for a long time. This is actually my 8th year at Realvolve, being the Chief Innovation Officer. The thing that I love to do is show agents how to use the product creatively, how to do the different things within Realvolve. A lot of it's things that I have created over the 31 years of being in real estate technology. I've spent a lot of time in the trenches with you guys, figuring out how to solve problems. And a lot of what I do is figuring out the why, helping you understand the why and figuring out what is your why. So we'll be covering some of that. In a previous office hours, we went through and we talked about the contact cross-section. On the dashboard of Realvolve, the contact cross-section does some number crunching. Basically, it brings some information together about the aware, know, like, and trust, along with the past clients, leads, prospect, and suspect people, figuring out where they're at in your database and doing things with them. Basically, when you get in there, there is a section where it'll start talking about average score and score ranges and stuff like that. And I didn't really cover the score processing piece very much. This is something that I came up with years ago in the original development of Realvolve, and it's just been a game changer for a lot of people. And we want to make sure that everybody really understands and comprehends how it can be used within your business and why it's there. That's the why. What is that whole section in there? So what we're going to be talking about in today's class really is from the dashboard area of Realvolve. There's a section called the R factor prediction. And we're going to get into a little bit more detail about what that R factor prediction actually is and does. But if you look in this upper right-hand corner here, there's a section here called R factor. And the R factor is kind of the quality of your database. What kind of database quality do you have for your business? And it's important to know that in order to have a successful business, having a sustainable business that's going to pay back dividends down the road. And we want to make sure that you know that. In order to get that R factor, though, there's something we need. We need to look at every record in the database. And if we just take a look at the very top of a contact record, there's a section, a little donut ring that shows the relationship score for that particular contact. So in this particular case, and this is just a record out of my training database, it's probably not the greatest of examples, but what it does is it shows you over here on the right-hand side, just kind of a simulated relationship. And we're going to cover that a little bit more about what that actually means. But what is it that, if you were to look at this contact and in real life, give your friendship, your nurturing, the things that you do with this person a score, and based off of that score, we're going to look at how all the different scores then come back and work into this R factor piece. During this, we're going to look at kind of how do you pick your top 100 people. I know a lot of people will pick like their top 50, top 100, 200. The people that are in your business that mean a lot to you. and how you nurture them and stuff. Your top 100 are the people that typically have the higher score, and we'll go over that. We'll talk about how to improve the relationships that you have in that database. How am I letting other relationships down? As my business grows, means that I don't necessarily have as much time with all my people. If I have to divide my time up, some relationships can suffer somewhat, and we don't want that. So how can we determine who is suffering in that relationship? Who are they? And how can we do better at building that relationship and nurturing that relationship? If I have an assistant, and maybe they're brand new to my business, I'm bringing in people into my business, how can I let people know through my database, if they're just looking at my database, how do I know which people are important to me? And we're going to cover that, as well as, who should I contact next? And some of that who should I contact next was really built into that contact cross-section piece that we did a couple weeks ago. And if you missed that, I would highly recommend you go out to our YouTube channel or visit our Facebook community, go through that process. We've got some recordings. You can go back and watch that whole training. So what is a relationship score? And a relationship score, just kind of an easy way to think about it, is a simulated friendship score. Okay? Now, if you think about it, there are things that you do, there's things that you enter into your database that is more generic information versus more private information. I kind of like to think about it as a Google contact, somebody that you might Google. You just go out there and Google their name, and you might come across, some basic information about it. Now, just because I have that information in my database, does that mean I have any kind of relationship with them at all? Probably not. I've gone out there, I've done a quick search, I've figured out some basic information, I've put it into the database. Have I contacted them? Have I nurtured them? Have I done anything with them? Probably not. But if I go out and I look at my Facebook friends, and even that is somewhat questionable. But if you look at your Facebook friends, typically you know certain things about them, what their family structure looks like. Maybe you know them through certain groups or something that you've done, and you've spent more time with them. So whenever we look at friendship scores, we need to figure out what kind of data do we have and what kind of information do we have to simulate this score, and that's what we're going to go over. So, has anybody heard the word propinquity? Propinquity. And I just did a quick Google search on it, the state of being close to someone or something in proximity, being close to them, or some kind of kinship. Early on, whenever I started doing the relationship score, I was using the word propinquity all the time. And I even did this course at a conference, and it just wasn't well attended because no one understood propinquity. And the title of it was Propinquity something, I don't know what it was, but people didn't really understand it. But the people that attended was like, this is great, this is amazing. And what it comes down to is what's called the Propinquity Effect. And that's the tendency of people to form close relationships with people that they repeatedly encounter. So if I'm constantly going through and meeting with people, I'm having dinners with them, or I'm lunches, or calling them, or sending information that's valuable information, not just blasting them with unwanted information, but good quality information, sending them what they need, that builds this propinquity, this closeness that we want. And that's what we want to do about bringing all this data into Realvolve and actually using it to build the propinquity effect. So whenever we look at the different fields in the database, we're going to look at how do we assign a point system, this relationship score in some way, to get a quality score on each person in the database. And as you move through the different stages, the aware, the know, the like, the trust, typically that score goes up. And we want to make sure that as we look at our people in the aware section or in the know section, that we know how their scores are made up and what would it take to move them to the next stage. Because we know this, whenever somebody comes in, they're typically in the aware section, meaning they're aware of you, but they may not know you well. They may not trust you. Typically, they don't know if they like you. They probably don't necessarily even trust you. But as you provide them with good quality content, as you provide them with information about the houses that they're looking for, about either the house they're trying to sell and what's the next step, all that kind of stuff, you start building that propinquity, that closeness, and what happens is that relationship starts growing and getting better. So that's what it's all about, is going through the different stages. And whenever we look at those stages, it also helps us determine kind of, you've got stage and you got status. And in status, within Realvolve, it's suspect, prospect, lead, client, past client. Everybody starts typically, if they're coming in as a brand new person, maybe off your website, maybe they're coming from an open house or whatever, they're a suspect. You don't necessarily know. Are they just there to looky-loos that just want to see what the house is, or are they really kind of interested in the house? Okay, so whenever we get to looking at our scores, there's like multiple types of things that we look at. And as we move them through the stage and the status, these score pieces continue to go up. So there are 15 different score points that we typically look at. We're going to go over each one of those. It's not just garbage in, garbage out. If you've had other databases in the past, you've had other systems that you've used to collect contact information, what do? They hold information. And that's great if you need access to that information. But wouldn't it be nice if you had something that gave you additional information, additional content to that information that you're putting in? And that's what we're going to be looking at. This relationship score is something that other systems don't have. Now, they may have like a lead score, and it's somewhat similar, but this is an ongoing score that really talks about how is your friendship, your relationship with them in your database, and then how that then extrudes out to a bigger, more important score for your entire database. A score is constantly changing. It's kind of like your FICO score. Everybody's aware of the FICO score here, I'm sure. It goes up, it goes down, depending on what you do with your credit, right? If you're splurging on things, putting a lot on credit and not taking care of your credit, your FICO score goes down. And if you're maintaining, you're doing the right things, your score continues to go up. Relationship scoring is the same way. If you do things right with your database, the scores go up. And if you're doing things wrong, the scores will go down. The larger the score, the stronger the relationship. And that's the main thing that you want to understand. The stronger relationship, the closer you are to a deal down the road. Because if you have two separate people and you have a stronger relationship with one person over the other, what's the likelihood, if you have a good, strong relationship with somebody, what's the likelihood that they might go to somebody else, that they might find some other real estate agent that will help them with their real estate needs? The purpose of this is to help improve that score so that you know you're doing the best you can do to nurture that relationship And it's not just about sending, calendars once a year or recipes every month. Those are old tactics that just didn't work well. Some do, some don't. But there are things that you need to do to nurture that relationship, and we can use Realvolve then to build that relationship score up and make it what it should be for your entire business and get that whole ball rolling. So the changes in the scores really tell you who is ready to be contacted as well. So if your scoring goes to, say you've got somebody in the lead area and you're providing with information, you're doing things with them, the score is going up, and that score gets into the average scores of clients and past clients. Those are people that are hot, they're ready, they're, maybe one extra phone call can push them over the edge to be that client. And that's the thing that you need to know. That's the thing that will key your business and make you go to the next level. So what are the different data points that we do look at? There's lots of information. The raw data itself is something that's really, really important. And again, I kind of described this earlier with the Google data versus the Facebook data. The content, the raw data that you put into a contact record is evaluated. We look at what type of information you're putting in. It's not just being, whenever you put in a contact, it's not just being dumped into the database. It's actually being looked at and evaluated, and what kind of information is there in that data that you're putting in. Is it that Google data? Is the information just very rudimentary information that isn't going to get you anywhere? Or is it more quality information like kids' names and birthdays and information that's going to help propel you to a better relationship, knowing that you're a better relationship? That's important. So we look at that. We look at the time that you've had with that person, the number of years that you've known them, and we score that. We look at the category. Now, the category is something where it's more of a user preference, the A, B, C, D category. Whenever you're putting in somebody into your database, maybe you've got 2 people in the database, and we are scoring them fairly identical. You're doing the same thing to both of them, but on one of them, you know better than the other, and you might score it alphabetically, the A, B, C, Ds. That's an A, and it would get a little bit higher score than somebody that was maybe a B or C or D. And so we're looking at the categories and helping you identify those people that are important to you as higher scores. We do look at the referrals. How many people have referred information or people to you is actually a trust factor. If they're referring people to you, they trust you. They trust that you're going to give that person a quality experience through that home buying or home selling process. And that trust factor is a number that builds as they give you more referrals. So that's an important one. We do look at also the lifetime value. How much money has a particular person made for you? We have a field in the database for lifetime value. And if you use that field to identify, okay, Sally, I've made $10,000 off of, and Joe, I've made $40,000 off of. And it may have been through multiple transactions, or it may be through different referrals that have come through there as well. But the lifetime value of those people have value, and we score those as well. So those are in the mix of things. We look at the engagement by contact. Now, what is engagement? Engagement would be how engaged are they with the conversations that you're doing with them. If you send them a text message and they don't reply, there's no engagement. So the scoring on that can be reduced. It's something that there's no engagement. They're not interested. So we need to figure out what else can we do? If they're not engaging with you, what else can we do? If they are engaging, if they're replying to the emails, if they're replying to text messages, they're making phone calls and you're connecting in phone calls, that engagement is scored and your relationship score goes up as well. So those are things. We also look at bonding events. And if you look into your calendar task types, there's one there called meals. Are you having meals or appointments with people and having bonding events at breakfasts or lunches or dinners? People that break bread together build that relationship together. And that's something that's important. So we're looking at that type of data as well. Now, I know this can sound like it's creepy, brother looking over the shoulder. We don't do anything with this data at all for ourselves. This is just for you. So do realize that as well. The relationship building piece. How many calls and visits am I doing with this person? Have I visited them? And if I, visit them quarterly, and then it starts trailing off, then that score can go down. If I do more with them, the scores can go up. Those are things we look at. The intensity, the importance of tasks. Now, whenever you set up a workflow and the workflow is processing, there are options in there for setting importance. Things that you know are important are like appointments, things that you want. If you have importance added to, is it a high importance activity, medium or low? Those things are looked at as well, and we figure out how many of those high important activities are happening within a given time frame, and based off of that, the scores can go up. Probably you're in the middle of a transaction with them. You're doing something with them, and that score is going up because you're building that relationship with them. You're going through the experience with them. There is one called experiences, and this is kind of like long events. There's an option for travel. Are you traveling with people? And this is probably not used quite as frequently because you don't really always go out, but you do have some people that you're doing that with, and that the experiences, things that you do with people that are outside of business, that are in your calendar, we can look at that and calculate some additional scoring based off of that. We do look at the frequency of activities as well. So in this case, what we do is we look at a given time frame, and in that given time frame, how many activities are happening. Again, this is another one. It's kind of like intensity, but it's frequency, meaning how many of them are in a given short time. And we look at that. We also take into account score decay. And we talked about this, things that reduce that relationship, things that bring that relationship score down. And that scoring that comes down is kind of detrimental to your business. And you want to reduce that as much as possible. Somebody's birthday comes up and you don't send them a birthday card, or you're not contacting them in some way in that birthday period. Guess what? The score will go down. If you're making the phone calls in a given time frame or sending a text in that given time frame of their birthday, the scores will go up. Those types of things that can reduce those scores, the score decay, is pretty much time related. If you're spending time with other people and you're neglecting some of your people, those scores go down. So you got to be careful of that. So things that make your score go up, the categories, an A is greater than a B is greater than a C is greater than D. That's your personal assessment of that relationship. The time, the years known, birthdays and anniversaries coming near, the recent communications, calls and notes that you've done. These are all the different types of things that help make your scores go up, especially workflow activities. If you've got them on some kind of listing process, closing process, something that there's, multiple activities happening within a short period of time that can help that score go up. Now, scores can go down once they get off of that relationship, once they get off that workflow. And that doesn't mean that the relationship is going down. But if you think about it, you leave one relationship at the end of closing time, and you get other ones, and you've got to spend more time. So it's trying to simulate as close as possible that friendship and that relationship that you're building with people. And you just got to kind of see the waves and flows, ups and downs that's going to happen. Kind of went over this already, the score the definitions. Time, how long have you known somebody? Time is a kind of an important one. Like one of my very best friends is Ken Robinson. He lives in North Carolina area, and we just don't see each other very often. But whenever we communicate, it's like I've known him since 5th grade, and we've just, the next time we pick up like right where we left off. And it's that type of thing that's important to know. How long have I known somebody? Now, if I don't contact him in a while, he knows we're still friends. He knows we're still important to each other. But it's not the same if I look at somebody that's brand new to my database. I've just got them as a lead, and I don't communicate with them. Now they feel rejected. They feel unwanted. And that's where time is so important. And what we can do then is we can use that time to our advantage to help identify people that we can kind of put off a little bit, or the people that we can't put off based off of how long have we known them. And we know that based off of a few different fields in the database. Categories, we already did that. That's your own personal grades. The stage and the statuses are so important. You're moving, and this kind of goes back to our contact cross-section training that we did a couple weeks ago. We're moving in this kind of upward, up into the right area of aware, know, like, and trust. We want people that are currently aware of us, they know us, to get into the like phase. People that like you do business with you. People that trust you do more business with you. They refer business to you. So you always want to move that up and to the right. The suspect, prospect, lead, those three kind of categories of a lead. Suspect, prospect, and lead are just leads, but it's different levels of leads. A suspect is somebody that you just don't know at all yet. You've maybe not communicated with them. Prospect, you're starting to know. You're gathering information. You don't necessarily know that you can help them yet. Probably you can, but at some point it's like, oh yeah, I can help you. We can do this, and that becomes the status of the lead. We really want to get them to lead as quickly as possible, and that's just getting that initial phone calls in, doing the different things. Then once they get to like in the stage, they typically flip over to client. Simple as that. The contact types. Now, there are in the Realvolve database, we have different contact types. We have the client type, which is the default one. We also have the ability for you to category names in your database under agent. If they are a real estate agent, you ought to put them in there, because an agent probably isn't going to do business with you as far as buying or selling a home with you, because they're already an agent, right? So certain ones of these are important to kind of weed out whenever we're looking at your overall database score, and we're going to cover that. But your primary contact types, whenever we're looking at scoring contacts, we're looking at the client type, we're looking at farm, we're looking at personal, and we're looking at prospect. Vendors would be like your accountants, your lawyers. And while you may do business with them, they're actually doing more business referring back and forth. Hopefully you're spending time being a referral partner with them than just a client type partner with them. You do have your team members. Those would be the people on your team that are in the database, and we use them for different things. And then there's hidden. Now, hidden is one that isn't used as much, but it is there. And that is for whenever you're putting in people into your database from a transaction that isn't your client. So say you represent the seller and you've got all kinds of information about seller one, seller two, the people that are there. Some other agent brings in the buyer, and you want to get the basic information about them, but they're not your client, right? You don't want to be prospecting to them or doing things with them until you know that maybe that agent is no longer in business, and then they're kind of fair game at that point. But you can use that hidden category as people that are in your database, but they're not really your people. And it doesn't use any of their data along with the agent and the vendor or the team members. Those are kind of skipped whenever we're looking at the relationship scoring piece. The referral count, we talked about that already. The referral count just looks at how many referrals did they give, and that's that trust factor. The details, we also really discussed that about the public versus private and the types of data that's being put into the database, how important some fields of information are compared to other fields of information, just because something is more personal to you. You guys, while I know a few of you, some of you don't know me from Adam, and you don't know my family and stuff like that. But if you did, more than likely I have a better, my kids' names, stuff like that. That's information that is great to know and be able to use within conversations, within the different types of correspondence that you do with each of your people. The lifetime value, we talked about that. If they're referring people, or if they're doing multiple transactions and those transactions come back in the form of commissions, those commissions get added into the database, and that's the lifetime value. That's how much have I made off of them over the life of that relationship in my database. The engagement we talked about, the sending and receiving of communication, the bonding, those are just all things that are factored in. We talked about the relationship, the propinquity, how close are we in, and the closer you are to somebody, the more likely it is, that's the propinquity effect, the more likely they are to do business with you. We talked about the intensity, their reply intensity, how quickly do they reply to stuff, frequency, and the score decay. Score decay is something that is time-based, mostly time-based, where if you're neglecting a contact record, their score is going down into the 12th percent, meaning we divide it by the months in the year, we're dividing that and giving a percent off of that, and the score continues to go down. So you don't want to neglect the records in the database, otherwise the scores go down, and as you see your score to go down, things go bad. Now, I have seen several agents that have made deals with, maybe I shouldn't bring, well, I will. You may like this, you may not, but if you've got assistants and you've got team members and stuff like that, you can look at that R factor that we're going to be talking about here in a second, and say, okay, based off of improving the R factor by 1 point, I'm going to give you guys a bonus. What does that mean? Well, that means they're helping nurture those clients. They're improving, they're doing things to help bring those scores up. And by bringing those scores up, that means you've got a thriving business, a business that is sustainable. And we want that. That's what we're wanting. The things that make your scores go down. If you take somebody from an A to a B, your score is going to go down. Non-activity over time. If you avoid birthdays and anniversaries, if they're not opening emails, if they're not replying to emails, those types of things that you're blasting out data to them, but they're not finding it valuable. And that can bring your score down. So you want to make sure that the people that are receiving content that is valuable to them, and they're opening it and they're doing the things that they need to do to keep that score up. So the big question is, what is the extra effort that I have to do all this? Within Realvolve, what is it that I have to do to get my scores to a certain thing? Well, you're already entering information into the contact records. You're already putting that data in there. You're doing workflows and stuff like that. So that's taken care of. We look at that stuff. That's stuff that's done automatically for you. You're adding events and appointments to your calendar. You're automatically are already doing these different things. So you really do nothing extra. Realvolve handles it all for you. And that's the important thing. If you use other systems out there, they're not doing this. They're just not doing this. So, what is the biggest challenges with most CRMs? You only get out what you personally put in. If I'm putting in names and addresses and phone numbers, that's all I'm getting back. Instead of this feedback loop that we're getting with the relationship score, it's actually giving you information back within Realvolve, but most others don't. A lot of times you have to schedule your own reminders and stuff. The workflow systems that are based off of completions and what Dale talks about in the 4Ds, the dates, the delays, those are different things that are so important, that are ingrained in that workflow process, that make it so much easier. And we make that process very easy within Realvolve once it's set up. Yeah, there are some learning curves. There are things that we do differently than any other system out there, and I get it. But once you learn those things, then it clicks, and it's like, wow, this is amazing. If you're scheduling contacts every 90 days in some systems, and it just, every 90 days you're just making a quick phone call or doing whatever. What if other things back in, they're not replying, they're not doing things, and their score starts going down in other systems? You just don't know about it. Within Realvolve, it'll bring forward those people that need attention, and that's important. You need systems that give you that information back without that extra input, and you need those systems that monitor change, and that's what Realvolve's doing. So whenever we look at the big picture, and here's the big picture, this is kind of like the big piece that you want to understand and know about. We take, of those different categories, we weed out the agents, the vendors, the team members, and the hidden. Anybody else in your database, which are your clients, your personals, your farms, and we look at all the scores on all of those, and we look at the count of how many you have. You might have a database where you've gone out and you've purchased a bunch of leads, and you've just filled your database with all kinds of leads, 10,000 leads, and all of their scores are very low. You've not maintained them well. Just because you got a big database doesn't mean you've got a quality database. Or you may have gone through and people that come in, you build those relationships, you're doing the right things to get their scores up. You may have a small database of contacts, but all those contacts are in a high score range. That high score range is what's so important. And we score your entire database of those important people. We weed out those agents and vendors from the R factor itself. And we look to see what is your R factor score. Now, whenever you first start using Realvolve, the R factor is going to be 0. And it's kind of in a learning mode. What are you doing? It takes time to build it up. It'll typically go from 1 to 10. I've never seen anybody at a 10. Actually, I would almost like to give an award to somebody. If they can reach a 10, they're doing it right. I would like to have some kind of award. I'll probably give a shirt or something. Probably better a shirt. Give something to those people that have the 10s. Most people have it in the 4 to 5 range. 2, 3, 4 is a lot of people. They're doing the same old with whatever system they used to do, and their scores are not great. For those that are actually building the business and doing the database the way they should, I'll see their scores in that 7 to 8 range. I've seen 1 9 in the time that I've done it. Those are the people that are doing it right. They're maintaining their database. Actually, they're going beyond maintaining. They're building that database and nurturing those people, and that score goes up. Now, here's the magic piece of this. You get your database to a point where it's up in a high factor. We can take that and look and predict how many transactions should you be able to do with your database. If you've got a low factor but a high number of leads, but you're not doing anything with them, actually, if you have a low factor because you're not maintaining, even though you've got a lot of leads, doesn't mean you're going to do a lot of transactions. You're just not maintaining that. So that number of transactions that you do can be severely deprecated based off of not keeping that R factor up higher. If you've got a higher score, the higher the score, typically the higher the predicted number of transactions that you'll do. And then we can look at and figure out, based off of that number of transactions, your past commission structure, the way you're set up, we can pretty much tell you how much are you going to be making, and that's what's part of the important part. But here's the other important part. What if you get to a point in your life where you want to sell your business? Now you have a way, within Realvolve anyway, now you have a way to share and to show the quality of contacts that you have in your database. And that's something people will buy. Why does Google buy companies for millions and billions of dollars? Is it because they can't replicate the technology? They can't do the same thing that some other company's doing? No, they're buying the people that are already in that. They want those customers. They want that data. They want the information. And you, using Realvolve, having this information in your database is valuable. That valuable information can be sold at a premium whenever you're ready to retire. And you want to make sure that you've got something in there that can evaluate that importance. And that's what this does. So that's kind of the big picture. If you look at what it is, the R factor itself, what we do is we have a magic formula. I've used this for years. We've looked at lots of people's databases. We've looked at how that relationship is built, the people that do the things right and the people that do the things wrong. And we do the evaluation to figure out how things are done. And we've got a magic formula with the real estate's golden ratio is the number of transactions equals the contacts that you've got over the quality of your database times this magic number divided by 100. While it sounds kind of crazy, it's spooky close. And It's not 100%, but it's very, very, very close. I've had people come up to me when we were at conferences and stuff and just say, man, it's been amazing seeing my database get to a point where the numbers are there. Exactly what you predicted is what actually happened. And that's what's fun. So that's where that R factor comes in. So whenever we look at your database, what are the things that you can do to help pick your top 100? Well, you can filter your database. You can go in and do a custom filter, and you can say, show me all those people with certain high scores. Those are your important people, the ones that have the high scores. And those people that aren't, that maybe you think are your important people, maybe you're not spending as much time with them as you should, and you want to look at their scores to see how you can get their scores up and bring those to a level that are with your actual top 100. How do you improve the relationships within your database? My voice is getting ready to go. You need to verify the scores with your likes and trusts. Where is your averages? And try to look to see how can I improve that through the right nurturing, through the right processes, through the right workflows, the things that I can do to build that propinquity and that closeness, and being able to make it so that friendship is being built and they realize it's not just business. And I only contact them when I want more business, but I'm there all the time for them, and I'm giving them good content and information that's relevant for what they're doing. Even through the year, I mean, it's important. If you're going to be sending newsletter type information, and you should, make sure it's relevant for them and information that's going to help them turn their investment, which is probably the most their biggest investment in many cases, being their property that they own. Get it to a point where it's making them money, and show them the value of what their property is, and do the things that you guys know what to do there. I'm not trying to teach you that. It's just, this is the indicators. These are the things that help you know how I'm doing and where I might be needing to spend more time doing other things. So that's important. How can my assistant know who's important to me? Well, that's just a matter of looking at either my contact cross section and seeing who's in the trust and the like, or if somebody calls up and they look at the database, they can see the high score. Make a mental note. Hey, the people that are at X score, those are my important people. Those are the ones that I want to make sure are always happy. If they call me, let's give them the royal treatment. And then who should I contact next? Again, this is the contact cross section. The contact cross section uses the scoring pieces to be able to identify who needs to be contacted. If their scores are dwindling and doing things they shouldn't do, they'll show up here. So that's an important piece there. If you look at the contact cross section, you can click on any given area, and we went over this on the other class. I just wanted to hit this really quick. Was just going through and seeing this. You'll see that their scores are in here. If they're a lead and they've got a low score, you need to be doing more stuff with them. If you've not contacted them within a certain number of days, their score is going down because you've not contacted them. You're doing them an injustice, and you're doing yourself an injustice by just allowing them to linger. And I think that's it. Yeah. So I rattled on for what's this been 50 minutes here. I didn't hear anybody click in. Let me go back to here. So Daryl asked, what might might one do to cause the relationship score to go down? Well, the neglect. That's the things that if you're not doing the important things at the important times, scores will go down. Hope that makes sense, Daryl. Jennifer, should I spend time to go through my database and in how long I've known them? Yes. So if you go into the database and you go to contact, now you may have imported a bunch of names and stuff into your database. So, the last time you updated them, stuff like that's kind of behind the scenes. But in the details section here of a contact, there's the lifetime value field. What is their lifetime value to me? And if you come here, known since. How long have I known them? If I did a transaction back in 2014 with them, that was first time, that's the date you should put in there. Their year anyway. You just put in a year in that, and we do some calculations based off of that year. What's the current year, and do some number crunching there. We look at so if we come up here into the classifications, this is where your contact types are. Again, these are the ones that we have available. Your client, your farm, your personal, and your prospects are the ones that's counted in your relationship scoring piece. The stages, aware, know, like, and trust. If you've got people that aren't in a stage at all, I would put them in a stage and get them to going. Same type of thing for the status. Are they a suspect, prospect, lead, client, or past client? If you imported data from somewhere else, and you've not done this piece, that just helps maintain the quality of that database and putting them in there. Do you have to change them all at once? No, just grab a few people every day and kind of do the calculations. Did I do business with them in the past? Well, then they're a past client. If I'm currently doing business with them, they're a client. If I've never done anything with them, they're a lead. And if I've really not done anything, that they're brand new to the database, or I don't know who they are, maybe put them in there as suspect, prospect. I've not done anything with them. Those are people that it may be too late by now. If they've been in there for a long time and they're just now being suspect, prospect, they may have already bought the house. So you've got to be cautious there. But you might be able to do some figuring, and it's like, well, 5 years ago, they might it might be time for them to be looking at another property, or 7 years ago. Those are the people that you can kind of look at. Are they buyers or sellers? But all this data, this data is what I'm talking about, is things that about them, and the more information you put in about these people. Are they married? Do they have relationships with other people in your database? What's their birthdays, their anniversaries? What's their kids' names? This is the type of data that if I have this, I know that it's a little bit close. It should be a little bit better quality relationship than somebody I just Google, right? It's the gathering of this data and putting it into the database for each of the different contacts, and it looks at when did I last call them, when did I last email. Maintaining these dates help the database know certain information. If you're neglecting your database, I can't do anything for you. Not that you want to spend day in, day out on your database, but as you do things, let the system update the last call dates, the last email dates. Those types of things are important. What was my sources? Did I refer, were they referred by somebody? When did they refer them? If I know certain people have referred other people to me, these are my important people right here. Bernice here that referred Sam is an important person because they referred me, right? And Sam did business with me. Now, Bernice may not have done any business with me, but she did refer. And so she has value, right? And maybe I referred a person out to somebody else, another agent. Maybe they're moving out of the area and I referred them out. You can certainly do that. But all this different type of data that we're collecting is utilized within Realvolve, not just as a holding spot, like many of the systems out there, but as evaluated data that can be utilized to help do that score prediction. And the more I do with this person, the more activities, more emails I send that they reply to, text messages, the works. It's building that score, and we're looking at that score. So whenever we're looking at a contact, they've made a call in, we bring up their information, we see that they've got a certain score, that helps us identify who's important to us. More questions. Let's see. Troy says, is it better to dump a bunch of the leads and contacts into a database, even if you haven't contacted them, maybe even, or to try to keep it to the contacts that's more relevant? Does it impact the database score? Yes, it does. If you're just dumping names into the database and you're not doing anything with them, that'll bring your R factor down. It will bring it down. That just means your database is not as clean as it should be or could be. And if you're, I've seen agents that have 10 and 20,000 names, and, some of them, they don't do that much business, but they've got this huge database and they think it's so important to have a huge database. And it can be, for new leads, but in most cases, those leads that are in there are so old, they don't know you probably, or they've already bought. They're not going to do you much good. And that's what brings the score down. It's just reality there. If an e-newsletter is sent out every week, not through Realvolve, should I add the dates in the contacted dates? It's something to look at. What you can do is if you're marking a bunch of names, you can go into the view all section here. And maybe you go in and you select all the names in the database. You can come up here and click on the add note and just put a note in your database for the selected names. And by doing that, it does add content and helps improve that score. So definitely that would help by doing that, Carmen. Any other questions? Well, we are right at 12 o'clock right now. Good group today. Thank you guys for attending. I love having, we do this every Wednesday, and we go through some kind of topic like this. Sometimes it's a short topic, and we have more time for questions and answers on other things. But anytime that you guys can come and watch, we love it. If you can't attend, definitely look for the replays. If you go out to our YouTube channel, we do have a section in the YouTube just dedicated to office hours as a playlist, and you can play around with that. Watch those at your leisure. So, any other questions? Going once, going twice? All right, guys, have a great rest of your week. We appreciate you, and if there's anything we can do, just let us know.